I've got some important information if you're planning to visit Washington, D.C. this fall or winter. Hello, my name is Rob. I'm a tour guide and the founder of Trip Hacks DC Tours. On this channel, I share my best tips, tricks, and hacks for exploring Washington, D.C. And over at triphacksdc.com, you'll find info about tours and more. Washington, D.C. is currently about as close to fully reopen as we've been since last March. But not everything is 100% reopened yet. In this video, I'm going to run through what has fully reopened, partially reopened, and is still waiting to reopen. Then I'll cover the COVID travel rules that are in place right now. And finally, I'll give my opinion about whether I think this fall or winter is a good time to visit Washington, D.C. I know many of you have already been to D.C. this year, so if you could do me a favor and leave a comment and let everyone know how your trip went. Or if you're still planning your trip, leave me a comment and let me know what you're most looking forward to doing. With that said, let's get started. First, let's run through some reopening updates. At this point, most Washington, D.C. sites have at least partially reopened. On August 27th, the final Smithsonian site, the National Postal Museum, reopened. And with that, all Smithsonian museums were now reopened to the public. However, most Smithsonian museums are open 5 days per week right now, not 7. And 2 Smithsonian sites, the African American History and Culture Museum and the National Zoo, both require advance tickets. So make sure to go to the website si.edu/visit for the most up-to-date information about days, hours, and whether you need tickets, in case things change after I post this video. And also remember that not every exhibit will be open in every museum. There is still a massive multi-year renovation happening at the Air and Space Museum. And different sections of the museum will rotate being open and closed. The National Gallery of Art is fully reopened, 7 days per week, no tickets required. And of course, private museums have reopened. Other federal sites that have reopened to the public include the Library of Congress, the Rotunda at the National Archives, and the White House Visitor Center. However, other federal sites that are still closed include the Capitol Visitor Center, the Conservatory at the U.S. Botanic Gardens, and the Inside the White House tours. The Washington Monument has reopened, though it's been quite a wild ride. It first reopened in July, right after Independence Day, but then it closed in August due to a pretty intense lightning strike. But after some repairs, is now back open. You do need a ticket to go up in the Washington Monument, and they are in very short supply. So make sure to check out the video description for a link to my video where I gave you step-by-step instructions for how to get these tickets. Trip Hacks DC Tours are open for booking through the end of October. Both the private tours with me and the Monumental Trivia Tour with Christine. If you're interested in either of those, make sure to sign up early so you don't miss out. Now, let's run through the current COVID travel rules. First, face masks are required regardless of vaccination status anytime you're indoors or in a confined space, which includes your hotel, museums, and stores, and transportation like metro, buses, and Uber. So make sure to pack all your favorite masks for your visit. Now, you may have seen in the news that some cities, most notably New York City and San Francisco, have instituted proof of vaccination rules. Washington, D.C. has not done this yet, but this is important. Individual businesses can require proof of vaccination if they choose, and many are. Right now, the types of businesses that have created proof of vaccination rules mostly are restaurants, bars, concert venues, and theaters. Basically the places where a lot of people will be in a tight indoor space. There are far too many of these places to list in this video, so what I'm going to do is list 2 resources down in the description. The first is this Washington City Paper article that lists all of the bars and restaurants that have announced their vaccination rules. There are over 50 places on the list, and it continues to grow. The second resource is this DCist article about the rules and requirements for live theater. Now, you can bring your vaccination card with you, just in case you need it anywhere you go. But if you're like me and afraid of losing that thing, you could also look into one of the apps where you can load your vaccination card and any COVID tests that you've recently taken. Now, of course, the wild card is, what about kids under 12? I will admit, this is a challenging time to travel with kids under 12 because the rules are all over the place. Unfortunately, this means you basically just have to check with every business you want to go to and ask what their rules are. For example, to attend a show at the Kennedy Center, proof of vaccination is required. But for those under 12, since they can't get one, they can instead bring proof of a negative COVID test within 72 hours of the event. And remember, these rules primarily right now apply to restaurants, bars, theaters, and concert venues. So most of the big sites where kids will probably want to go anyway, like the museums, do not have them. But if you're traveling with someone under 12, it might just be a good idea to get them that test right before the trip, just in case. And now for a few final thoughts. An important question that people have been asking me recently is whether I think things will close down again like they did last winter. If you remember, many of our sites, including the Smithsonian museums, did reopen last summer and fall, but then did close down again when there was a huge COVID case spike around Thanksgiving. Now, I can't say that this is not possible, but I do think it's unlikely because we have tools available now that we didn't have last year. I do think it's highly likely that the indoor mask rules will stay in place this fall and winter. But honestly, that's a relatively small sacrifice to make for all of our big sites to be open. I think a lot of people will be closely watching New York City and San Francisco to see how things go over there. So whether we wind up copying them or not, we'll just have to wait and see. Now, do I think this fall or winter is a good time to visit Washington, D.C.? Yes, I do. Tourism here in 2021 is certainly higher than 2020, but it definitely has not caught up to 2019 levels. And many of you who have visited this year and come on tour with me have been pleasantly surprised about the small crowd levels, which is a phenomenon that won't last forever. So if you can take advantage of this opportunity, I say, take advantage of this opportunity. And by the way, based on how quickly things are always changing, I'm sure this won't be the last of these update videos. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, so you don't miss anything in the future. I know that a lot of people missed my last important update video because a vast majority of TripHacksDC viewers aren't subscribed. But you can go ahead and take care of that right now. And hey, if you made it this far, then I highly recommend another TripHacksDC video, so go ahead and click or tap right over here to watch the next one. And if you're coming to DC and interested in signing up for a TripHacksDC guided tour, you can click or tap on the Capitol Dome on the left side of my head. That'll send you right over to triphacksdc.com, where you can see all of the tours that we offer. Enjoy your trip!